Hello everyone. Gosh, I must apologize for having to delay the transmission of this broadcast by an hour, but we got a call this morning to say that if we could make it to a specialist veterinary physician by 7 o'clock, he would be able to fit our dog in a couple of weeks earlier than the earliest appointment I'd been able to make. And you know, I want to actually use this as a little bit of a lesson. So this physician, he is one of the first people who qualified in the country. In fact, he studied in the States to become a specialist veterinary physician. So he did normal veterinary science, and then he did, I think, an additional 7 years on top of that. So he's the equivalent of a human physician. He's also, as the years have gone by, he has studied human acupuncture because they didn't offer it for animals at the time. And he has studied human homeopathy because he wanted to be able to combine these alternative methods of treating his animal patients as humanely and naturally as possible with the allopathic and traditional veterinary science. So the point that I want to make is that Gary is a specialist. He not only is a specialist veterinary physician, but he's got these additional two specializations, acupuncture and homeopathy, on top of it. And I think they were each 3-year degrees that he did. And you cannot for love or money get an appointment for him. Even during the coronavirus, when we were in lockdown, he was booked up 6 to 8 weeks in advance. And so this comes down to what you all know is one of my real passions, which is niche and specialization. And there are definitely cases to be made for becoming exceptionally good at what you do and for niching down and really specializing, because I have never ever been able to get an appointment with him within less than like a month to 6 weeks waiting period. In fact, I've got another little one of our dogs who is currently having fits. We think it's something to do with his heart. He loses, completely loses consciousness. I've asked for an emergency appointment, and the first one that I can get is on the 5th of November. So that is a Thursday, so I will be coming to you late on that day. I'm just giving you advanced warning. But it does just prove my point that when you really niche down and specialize in a particular area, you get to the point where you build up such a reputation and you become so well known for the work that you do that you don't have to look for work. You're not impacted and affected by things like global pandemics and lockdowns. People still come to you and people seek you out. And more importantly, he is one of only 5 specialist veterinary physicians in the whole of South Africa. He and one of his colleagues were the first 2 to ever train, and he has trained he has been part of the training process for the other 3 specialist veterinary physicians that are in South Africa. So, you're just talking about somebody who is like really at the top level. No, Catherine says, haha, was that comment for me, Megan? No, not at all. But thank you for joining me. It's good to see you online. But it's a wonderful lesson in the beauty of actually really getting clear on what it is that you do, what it is that you offer, who you offer it to, how you go about offering it, and then building that subject matter expertise that makes people seek you out. But I'm getting completely sidetracked and onto a different trajectory, which I could carry on for the whole of this broadcast. And what I really wanted to talk to you about today was looks. And as I said in the intro to this video, as much as you might want to ignore it or avoid it, the fact of the matter is that we live in a world that judges people and things by their looks. We judge books by their cover. And I think it goes back, again, if we look at neuroscience, I think it goes back to, our ancestors where, they're surveying the savannah. They were looking to see whether something that they saw moving in the bushveld was a friend or a foe. And so, over time, we've kind of evolved, we've retained that same kind of judgment about what we see. And when we see something that is well presented or that looks nice, we judge it as being a friend rather than a foe. A great example of this was yesterday. I had a coaching session with one of my VIP clients, and we were talking about logos and brands, and particularly building a strong personal brand. Now, if you have been following me for a while, you'll know that neuroscience and neuromarketing tells us that these successful and sustainable brands, the ones that survive, do three things. They get the attention of their audience, they maintain the attention of their audience, and part of that maintenance is through keeping a consistent visibility going. And thirdly, they engage the emotions of their audience, so the audience will be drawn to or will like them. And the example that she brought up was, she said, you see a certain W, and your immediate association, because it's been so strongly branded, is that particular W in that color, against that background, in that typeface, you associate it with the brand of Woolworths, and one of your brand associations is quality. So it just shows how important the minor details and the smallest thing can be in helping to build the strength of your brand. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way. If you are watching one of my videos for the first time, I'm so thrilled to welcome you. And my name is Megan Hudson. I am a dog-loving, as you can tell, tree-hugging, marketing and business coach. And I specialize in working with coaches to help you find and define your niche, and then to accelerate your marketing and sales, which is one of the reasons why I'm running this 100-day challenge. So welcome to the challenge, and I hope that you will go back over the last couple of days, as well as move forward and join us for the remainder of the challenge. I mean, can you believe that we are already a third of the way through the 100 days that we had set up to kind of, just give 2020 that middle finger? Alexa, thank you. It's lovely to see you, and I'm the one who was late, so my apologies. I gave a bit of an explanation at the beginning, and there was a little bit of a lesson around it, so you might later on want to just go back and catch up on the first sort of 5 minutes or so. But the challenge, I've had wonderful feedback, and I do appreciate those people who have given me the, come back to me, is to say that, like, every day, this little kind of, nugget of information is helping you to take one small, tiny step in the right direction, and to move forward towards achieving your goals. Sometimes, I know I did quite a what was it, yesterday or the day before, I had quite a response to my post, and I knew at the time that I was almost like in lecture. I was on my high horse or my soapbox. Let's put it that way. So please feel free during the course of this video to comment, to ask questions. Let me know where in the world you are watching from, and also to let me know that whether you're watching live or on the replay. So I know I've got Catherine and Alexa watching live, and both of you are in the greater Joburg area. So lovely to have my fellow Sapphirs online. That's awesome. Thank you. So today, I felt an inordinate amount of pressure to dress for the occasion. So I'm wearing a different top. I'm still reveling in the big sleeves that are in fashion. And I also thought that I would bring one of my statement rose brooches to today's video. And I'll never forget a stylist some years back when I pulled it out of my wardrobe, kind of looking at it and saying, yeah, not everybody would have the confidence to carry that off. Well, I tell you what, if I could have bought this rose, which is enormous, if I could bought them in bulk, I would have, and I would wear like an entire, topiary or rose bush if I had the choice. And I've got thousands of these. They were very much, at one stage, very much part of my personal brand, my visual personal brand. Thanks, Alexa. I'm glad you love it. And I always used to joke at functions, if people would comment on it, I always used to say that it was, my microphone was hidden inside it. And actually, to tell you the truth, if you can see it at the bottom of the screen there, my microphone today is actually hidden behind my rose. So it's forming the function that I've always joked over the years that it would perform. What was really, really interesting though, because I did, as I say, use decorative items like, roses. I became, quite well known for always having at least one on my outfit somewhere, and sometimes even I would wear up to 3, like a whole flower arrangement across my shoulder. What was very, very interesting was I went through a period of seeing a psychologist. I was held up at gunpoint twice in a period of 18 months, and so he was treating me for PTSD. And one of the things that came out was that I very definitely used clothing and things, distracting, attention grabbing things like this rose, or accessories actually is the word that I'm looking for, that I deliberately used things like this to draw people's attention away perhaps from me, and almost to hide behind. So clothes, the point that I am making is that clothes can actually be functional in ways that we don't really realize how we're using them. But I am going to be going into this a little bit more. I just wanted to show you, as a child, I had a very determined dress sense, much to my mother's frustration. And I used to be quite insistent as a toddler on what I would and wouldn't wear. And there are some rather amusing photographs, but I thought I was going through my mom's things and I came across my little pixie hat, which was one of my favorite clothing accessories as a child. I am delighted to be able to tell you that it no longer fits, and I just am going to possibly keep it for a little while as for happy memories. But yeah, that was my dress sense. It certainly has evolved, but we dress for occasions. And I think that we dress also there is sometimes some deliberation in terms of how I dress. There's a coach whose marketing I do on a retainer basis. She's one of the top coaches, and she works with the very, very top level of C-suite executives. And we had a conversation years ago about a distinctive piece of jewelry that she was wearing. I'd commented on it and admired it. And she said that she actually needed to take it off because in her coaching sessions, she was very conscious of not wearing or having anything that could in any way distract her clients from their process that they were going through and from the actual coaching experience. So she was very she would almost mute her natural dress sense and her love of real statement accessories so that they didn't form any kind of a distraction when she was in her client coaching sessions. And I thought I'd just share that with you because, it was just quite an interesting perspective and point of view. It's, and use it, lose it. I mean, you can see I'm into statement stuff, so I would wear it and possibly distract to the distraction of a client in a coaching session. But what happens when we meet someone for the first time? And there was some amazing research done by, I think it was Princeton University, on the neural mechanisms of first impressions. It's quite old research. I think it was done in about 2010, 2011. And what happens when we meet somebody for the first time? So remember this when you are approaching a client, or even when you are putting content out onto, marketing content out. Be very aware that if somebody comes across your marketing content for the very first time, there are two parts of the brain that become extremely active. So the first part that fires is our amygdala, and that is the part of the brain that is making that instantaneous decision about whether or not you are a friend or a foe, and whether or not to kind of stick with you and they can feel comfortable with you. So once that decision has been made, but almost instantaneously at the same time, there's this part of the brain called the posterior cingulate cortex, and it sort of runs down this part of the brain. It is one of the most energy sapping, metabolically intense parts of the brain, but it starts firing because it is now making a decision about whether or not developing a relationship with you is going to be rewarding. So this is the part of the brain that makes judgments around rewards and also around economic decisions that you have to make. And this research very nicely actually overlaps the research that I spoke about, I think, in one or two of my previous videos by Professor Susan Fisk and her team, where they talk about how people relate to us as personal brands on two continuums. So your warmth continuum and then your competence continuum. So again, you can see that there's multiple pieces of research that's been done on what happens when people are dealing with us, and even on when they're meeting with us for the very first time. And I always used to joke that my husband, obviously when he first met me, he was doing this judgment about can I like her, can we have chemistry, and can we have a happy marriage, and is she going is it going to be rewarding for me, and potentially is it going to be financially rewarding? But don't quote me. I think he's heard me say it a couple of times. So, but chemistry, we can see how important chemistry is when it comes to the coaching session. And again, if you've been watching my videos for a while, or looking at my training, you'll know that I talk about how in the research into how coaching clients choose their coaches has consistently for the last 10 years, almost without fail, told us that there are three main factors that people consider. So the one is trustworthiness, whether or not that's so important, because confidentiality is one of the pillars of the coaching conversation. So you do want to be working with someone that you know that you can trust, and also perhaps have received word of mouth referrals from around their levels of competence. The other thing that potential clients look at is the results that you deliver, and that also goes back to word of mouth referrals, because you will only be getting word of mouth referrals if you do really, really good work. And finally, and not necessarily in this order, but chemistry is the other main factor that has been shown to contribute most highly to the success of the coaching intervention, the ongoing chemistry between the coach and client. But in that very first meeting, with that very first impression with that client, whether it's online or in person, the chemistry, your client is already, having a chemistry session with you, they're already doing the whole equation thing. So that brings me on to the subject of enclothed cognition, and I want to bring it more, the topic more back to us, and how what we wear, how we look, impacts how we work and our kind of success. So in 2012, Adam and Galinsky, two researchers, did an experiment where they dressed people in a lab coat, but the lab coat was specifically associated with being a doctor or a scientist, something along those lines. And what they found, the very first outcome of the experiment was that the candidates who were dressed in the lab coats had higher levels of attention to detail, and they were more productive. The purpose of their research was to measure how what we wear impacts on how we think, literally how we think, how we feel, our mental processes, our attention levels, our levels of confidence, and even down to the type of thinking that we do. So whether it's abstract thinking, creative thinking, or whatever. And quite interestingly, the more formally or smartly people are dressed, the more kind of abstract and bigger picture their thinking can become. So that's the kind of thinking that we want our leaders to be able to embrace and embody. So that's just an interesting little nugget of information to keep in mind, that if a leader, or if you even as a leader in your own business and setting an example for your clients, if you want to encourage your brain or get into the mindset of bigger picture abstract thinking, dress more formally. If you want to get into a more more creative mode of thinking, then dress a little bit more casually, but not as casually as pajamas and slippers, which is, like part of all the memes that are going around now with more and more people working from home. And speaking of working from home, I've kind of focused the information that I've included to be able to support you, not only in terms of working with your clients in a normal way, but also to support you in these extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in, where we are working from home. So the researchers found, Adam and Galinsky found that clothes definitely, what we wear definitely sends signals to the brain, and it's related to the symbolism that we attach to different clothes. So, for example, wearing glasses is often associated with somebody who's intellectual, with intelligence, whether it's, apt or not. It is an association. Wearing jeans, clearly very, very casual. Wearing a power suit, we associate with that whole C-suite type executive role. And I think there are even kind of dress codes that we find acceptable in different professions. So I come from the advertising and marketing industry, and so we could be a little bit kind of off the wall, left of center, and perhaps experimental in terms of the clothing that we wore, and get away with it with impunity, no matter what environment we found ourselves in, no matter how formal the environment was. But the other function that your clothing and what you choose to wear has, especially now that we are working from home so much, is it helps us to delineate between where we used to get dressed for work, get in our cars, and perhaps go to an office or go to a client. Now we're no longer doing that, but if we still get dressed, we are still sending out a clear signal that we are going to work, we are at work, we are working now. And that signal not only goes to our brain, but it also gets sent to the other people who might be in our household. So it's quite functional in terms of sending a very clear message to ourselves and the people in our surroundings about the fact that right now I'm in my professional working mode. I'm not at home, I'm at the office. And then at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if that's when you choose to knock off, then get into something a lot more comfortable, so that mentally, again, you are sending a signal to your brain that you can kind of decompress, you can relax, and you can get into your at home and with the family mode. So it's just really interesting when you look at clothes and what we are wearing from these kinds of points of view, that we realize that all the time we are sending signals not only to our brains, but we are sending signals to the people that we come into contact with, whether it's directly or indirectly. So enclothed cognition, so it impacts how you are dressed, impacts the way that you feel, the way that you think, the way that you act and behave. And particularly in the online world, and I said, I think it was last week, that I was quite intrigued and amused to see a note to say that the fashion houses and clothing manufacturers are pushing more and more of their kind of intellectual and creative capacity into designing clothes from the waist up, and less intellectual and creative capital into designing for the bottoms, and that bottoms are almost being treated as a redundancy. Well, we do know from the research that has been done over the years into enclothed cognition, and more research is actually being done right now as we speak around this topic, where it shows that what you wear on your top and your bottom does matter and does impact on how you perform, feel, act, behave, your levels of productivity. So there is merit in actually getting completely dressed for work, even if you are working from home. Last week, I spoke about creating an environment that promotes productivity. And part of that environment is definitely the way that we present ourselves, the way that we send mental signals to our brain around, what mode we are in now. And I came across the most beautiful TED talk by, oh gosh, I actually can't remember the woman's name, Mindy Shire. Fortunately, I made a note of it here in my copious notes, where she was speaking about enclothed cognition and how clothes make us feel. But one of her children was born with quite severe muscular dystrophy, and it seems to be extremely progressive. And so she did an entire TED talk on what she calls adaptive clothing. And she talks about her son, Oliver, who, because of his muscular dystrophy, so Mindy actually had studied fashion and design, and she had worked for some of the top designers and fashion houses. And so clothing and fashion was a really, really important part of her life, and getting dressed up. How she presented herself to the outside world was something that was just part of her natural makeup. But here she had a child for whom, because of his inability with his muscles, the simplest things like pulling on a pair of socks was an enormously effort-filled and complicated exercise, just to do the coordination, get the socks onto the feet and then pull them up. And so Oliver grew up wearing tracksuit pants and t-shirts, it's something that he could just quickly pull on, and the tracksuit pants with an elasticized waist, because at least then he was able to take care of his own kind of personal needs, like going to the bathroom and so on, because if he was wearing something with a button and a zip, he wasn't able to manage it and manage his own personal hygiene. And so she got into she actually formed a company that now creates clothing for people with disabilities. It's called Adaptive Clothing, where she makes sure she uses like magnets instead of buttons, and Velcro. She uses Velcro extensively, and she actually, when her son Oliver got into the higher grades in school, he started talking about his aesthetic versus the aesthetic that his friends were presenting. So his friends were going to school in jeans and pants and things, and Oliver was always just pitching up in his pull-up tracksuit pants. And so what she did was she took a pair of jeans and she almost like ripped them apart. She had to put Velcro into the sides of the legs because Oliver had to wear leg braces, and the leg, he couldn't pull them on over his legs. She did a whole modification around the button and took the zip out and put Velcro there and everything. And this little boy was able to dress himself in a pair of jeans that looked almost identical to the jeans that all of his friends were wearing. And his whole attitude towards going to school changed because of this one small and seemingly insignificant modification or change that had been made in his life, that he was now able to dress like his friends. He was able to fit in and didn't have to endure the mockery of other people. I mean, it's a sad story, but it really does bring to life and demonstrate the power of clothing and the power that what we wear has over our mindset and over our feelings of well-being and positivity. So there are about 7 areas that enclothed cognition identified that what you wear impacts. So the one is your confidence, your feelings of authority and power, your feelings of being able to be successful or invincible, your feelings of happiness, so your well-being. I've spoken about how dressing in different ways can actually stimulate sort of the bigger picture thinking or otherwise higher levels of creative thinking. But also, pardon me, even the colors that we wear can have a massive impact on how we feel. Look at how, for example, in Western culture, we wear black to funerals. In some of the Eastern cultures, you wear white when you're in mourning. So we have real associations with color. Bright colors uplift our mood and can improve our mood. So surrounding ourselves with different colors and deliberately kind of being, I think this is a really good point to make, being deliberate and intentional about our choice of what we wear, what we put on in the morning, instead of just grabbing the nearest thing from the cupboard or, wearing something that you only wore for half the day yesterday because it's not yet ready to go into the wash, that kind of thing. Be aware that these small little decisions have an enormous impact on your mindset, your levels of creativity, your productivity. So, if we look, so again, some research was done a little bit more recently on social, psychological and personality science research was done, and dressing for the occasion is shown to increase our productivity. As I said, I've spoken about creative thinking. It enhances a professional mindset, and that is so important now when we are in our home environment and so easily distracted. And as I say, what we wear sends very clear signals to the people that we come into contact with. So by wearing professional clothing, even when you're working from home, if you have got children or, teenagers or whatever at home, you are sending a very clear signal that you are currently in your work clothes, your work mode, and you're currently at the office, even though you may not have left the home. The research also found that people who get properly dressed for their professional role take fewer breaks when working from home. They get distracted less easily. They don't get caught up in doing things like watching the TV or household chores, or I'll just go and make myself a sandwich for lunch and I'll sit and watch TV while I do it, and then you carry on watching TV for a lot longer than what you intended. It also promotes your ability to focus on the task and actually get it done. So, it eliminates distractions. And I'll never forget my very first coach. She said to me, I wanted to move up the ladder, the corporate ladder in the ad agency that I was with. And she said to me, you need to behave your way into the job that you want. And part of the strategy that I wanted to become a director, and part of the strategy that I employed was actually being very conscious and intentional about the way that I dressed. And I did eventually get appointed to, or it wasn't too long after that I did get appointed to the role. And at the time, the head of the agency said, because I embodied the qualities that role required. So different types of clothing have different kinds of effects. So kind of casual, more casual, relaxed clothing, things like jeans, have been found to promote creative thinking. People who are more casually dressed tend to be perceived as being friendlier, more approachable, and more sociable, and they also do behave in a slightly more friendlier, more approachable, and more sociable way. If you're wearing gym clothes, the research has shown that you are more likely to make healthier choices about what you eat and how you behave. And we've also seen research that if you actually had the intention of developing the habits of doing exercise on a regular basis, if you put your workout clothes out the night before right next to your bed, so that the minute you get out of bed you can get straight into your workout clothes, you are exponentially more likely to actually do that workout that you intended to do, versus if you actually have to go and get the clothes from the cupboard and get dressed into them. So just again, another demonstration of how clothing can help to adapt, modify, determine our behavior. And I want to position this to you in the sense that you can start to intentionally use your clothing to help you to achieve what you want to achieve. Okay. So they looked at luxury brands. Obviously, in people with luxury brands, there's a perception of status associated with using or wearing luxury brands, and that's both from the perceiver as well as from the wearer. I've spoken about how color affects our mood levels and also creates strong professional branding. So one of the things that I deliberately do is when I show up for my broadcasts like this, is I make sure that I choose and wear colors that fall into my brand's color spectrum. So you'll see me in a lot of burgundies, these dusty pinks, different color pinks, the whites. All of them are part of my particular personal brand, and I'm very careful and deliberate about wearing clothing that helps to build my personal brand, really entrench it really strongly, so that when you start to see certain colors one day, hopefully you'll associate them with niche intelligence and with me. But it even goes down to the type of underwear that you might be wearing. So I bought my husband, I love going to a shop called Big Blue, because they have these really goofy socks with awesome messages and things on them. And I've bought quite a few pairs for my husband, and nobody else can see what socks he's wearing, but he knows, and he has said to me that sometimes he'll kind of pull up his pants to scratch his ankle or something, and he'll catch sight of the particular pair of goofy funny socks that I've given him, and they will lift his mood, enhance his mood. So even what we are wearing underneath has an enormous impact, or can have an enormous impact on what we put out into the world. So there really are these layers that you can wonderfully use clothing to just enhance and change and manipulate your not manipulate in a nasty way, but as I say, help you to get into the right frame of mind or mindset to achieve certain things. So I do have a couple of practical suggestions for you if you're thinking, well, I don't know where to start. I mean, I know that some years ago we had a farm east of Pretoria, and so I would spend, even though I was seeing clients, most of the time I was on a farm, muddy farm, chickens, ducks, geese, you know, running after them, you know, just dogs tramping mud in and out of the house. And my dress code definitely went from being exceptionally formal when I was a director in the ad agency to being extremely casual because of the environment that I was living in. But I was also working from that environment and I was seeing clients. And so, you know, it became quite an adjustment for me because I got out of the habit of wearing smarter, more formal wear. So if you are in a position like that where you're thinking, well, I don't know where to even start, one of the best places to go just to get ideas and inspiration on how to make your existing wardrobe work a little bit harder for you with like different combinations of clothings and shapes and outfits that you might not have thought before. A great place is Pinterest. And if you just put in, you know, outfits, oh, I think I've lost my microphone. Let me just hook it up. Again, if you just put in coordinated outfits, it'll give you a whole range of really nice ideas and really stimulate a little bit of kind of interest in your wardrobe, you know, where you might not have seen the potential to be able to wear something in a particular way. You can watch YouTube for ideas, and YouTube and Pinterest are also fantastic for free online tutorials on different ways of doing your makeup. So if you are so inclined, if you don't wear makeup every single day and you're not very dexterous with putting makeup on or creative, or you actually don't know where to start, go and have a look and you might find something or a style that will appeal to you and that you will feel is authentic and comfortable for you. Something else that you can do is you can book makeup appointments, and there are kind of different ranges. So some of them are free, and you know, others like where it's formal or to, you know, learn to do a smoky eye or whatever. But MAC, the makeup brand, MAC, and Bobbi Brown, you can actually go in and have makeup demos. The benefit for them is that they will probably end up selling you quite a lot of what they use on you. But if you want to, like Bobbi Brown, for example, if you are very natural and you don't want to go over the top and be doing the Kardashian type, you know, facial sculpting and all the stuff that they do with their makeup, but if you want a nice, natural, quick and easy look that'll take you 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, Bobbi Brown has a wonderful range of products, and her whole brand, her underlying kind of brand persona is to simplify makeup and to create makeup that helps, that just enhances your natural beauty and your natural looks. I've spoken about Pinterest and outfit ideas, and you know, one of the things that you can do is create like almost like a wardrobe or a uniform. Find something that works for you and just rinse and repeat it in different colors, preferably in your brand colors if you can. You know, it would be irresponsible of me not to add that in, but find stuff that works for you. Find necklines that work for you. And a tip that I'll never forget from a stylist that I worked with was, she said to me, the camera never lies. And she always would take a photograph of the outfit that she wore every day. She and I met her years ago. I actually came across her in a Woolworths store, and she just had such an incredible aesthetic and dress sense that I ended up stalking her around the store and eventually introduced myself to her. We became really, really friendly, and she would, every day when she got dressed, she would take a photograph of the outfit that she was wearing, because she said that the camera never lies, and you can always see if there's something slightly out of proportion or something that jars the eye, and you can change it. So that's just another little funny tip. But it really does work. I can tell you, if you're buying new clothes, if you're trying something on in a change room, take a photograph on your phone before you buy it and have a look at how you look in that outfit, in that item, on your phone before you leave that change room. I can promise you that there will be things that you would otherwise have bought that you will actually put back on the shelf, because you'll think, I look like I'm wearing a sack. Okay, it's happened to me on numerous occasions. I've looked at something on the clothes rack and thought it was absolutely divine, tried it on, taken a photograph, and oh my word, I looked absolutely appalling. There is a coach who does quite a lot of online training, and who's just joined me. I can't see. Is that Rena? I'm not quite sure who that is in the corner. But thank you for being here. There is a coach who does quite a lot of online training, and she works with a professional dresser, and this professional dresser goes out and carefully selects interesting necklines. So what I'm going to do throughout the course of today is just grab a whole lot of screenshots of the different necklines that this lady wears, for her online work that she does, just to give you a little bit of really nice inspiration about different effects and things that you can look for to create a little bit more interest going on up top. Well, that's all I have for you today. Again, apologies for delaying the transmission by an hour, but we couldn't turn down the appointment that we were given at the last minute. And thank you to everyone who's joined me, Catherine, Alexa, and who is it now? Is just somebody came on and gave me a heart just now. Is it Sally or Rena? I just can't see, but I really do want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you've enjoyed it and picked up some interesting and useful information that is going to make you think slightly differently about how you present yourself and how you what you do when you get up in the morning. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful Thursday, and the weekend's just around the corner. So have fun, guys. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Oh, no.